welcome back to Rust Order Garage and the 1971 Nova LS swap, T56 swap, all that stuff. So we're to the point of getting the 6.0 prepared to go in the car. Oil pan swap, cam swap. And I started doing that all in one video, and it turned out to be a little bit much. So, as you can see behind me, the eBay oil pan is on, 302-2 oil pan. And I'm going to split this into two videos. So this video will be just for the oil pan install, because I did run into one problem on this oil pan that I did not have on any of my other eBay oil pans. So I don't think they're all made in the same foundry, but it was just something that came up that's, I guess, a good learning experience. So let's get into it. And you will notice that the front of the engine is all apart because, again, I was trying to do this all in one video. It's not going to work out, but we'll show the disassembly of the front end of the engine on the camshaft video, which will be coming out after this one. Okay, let's get started on the oil pan. All right, all the bolts are out except for two. Get those out. I think it's on the... Where are you? Right there. All right, oil pan is ready to come down. There we go. All right, oil pan is off. See how hard it is to turn this over. Or will it ever want to go back over? All right. Just saw here that part of the gasket came apart, stuck to the block. That off of there. All right, we're going to be removing the pickup tube, windage tray. Windage tray is going to have to get modified for the oil pan that we're going to use. I'm just cleaning this off a little for now. I'll have to come back with a razor blade and make sure the surfaces are all good, and some brake clean it up. So I'm just going to crack these windage tray bolts loose here while I'm here, because I got to get this pickup off of here. Right. Two nuts for the oil pickup. And then the one 10 millimeter head bolt at the oil pump. That off of there. And this pickup should come right off of here. Green O-ring. It's a thicker O-ring, which won't matter now because we're going to change pickup tubes anyway, but normal. All right, get the windage tray off next. Get out of there. Sticky. And then we'll have to modify this for the eBay oil pan. We're going to use the 302-2 because I'm not running a turbo in this Nova. Maybe the next one. Maybe the AMC. I don't know. I got to figure out what to put that turbo in. All right. All right, before I get started here, I'm just cleaning up the rails for the oil pan gasket. I'm using some red Scotch-Brite and brake clean to give it a good cleaning. All right, so I've got the 302-2 oil pan here. This is the one that we used for mock-up in the Nova on the 5.3 mule engine. Now it comes for real, so we have hardware and oil filter mount, block off plate, everything comes with it. So we'll be installing all of this stuff. If I can open it up wearing gloves, we'll see. Drain plug. All right, this is what I need first. This is the hardware for the plate that goes inside the oil pan. This guy here, baffle plate or whatever it might be called. And it is going to fit down into the oil pan one way and one way only as soon as I figure that out. Looks like that's the way. Okay, so that's going to sit in there like that. I've got 4 10mm bolts here as soon as I find my driver that we're going to use to put that in. 10mm, correct? Yes, 10mm. All right. I am going to use a little bit of Loctite on these bolts. Probably not needed, but I'd rather do it than not. All right, get those in. And that will be it for that. Next, after this, we'll put the block off plate on. And I did wipe out the oil pan with some brake clean down inside. Before I put this on, because I'm not going to be back in there. So that's good. Next, we'll put the block off plate on the side. And I have a couple different size bolts there. Let's see. Oh, 2 of them are for the pickup. All right, so these gold bolts, I believe, will be the ones we want. That is correct. So I've got going to have 2 bolts going through this. I've got this seal here, which is a metal seal. And what I normally do is put some Permatex number 2 on it, just to be safe. So I'll get this here. Wipe that off with some brake clean. Let me get some of that sealer. All right, just going to clean this. Some brake clean here. And then the cover. Wipe that off with some brake clean. Permatex number 2, form a gasket that you can't even read the label because it's got stuff on it. But this stuff is my favorite insurance policy for gaskets to not leak. It's not RTV. It doesn't harden up. It doesn't turn into chunks that go through your system. It just sits here and does the job. All right. Now this is going to go like that. We'll get our bolts. And this Permatex 2 is also real good if you're doing any bolts that go into water jackets, like small block, big block Chevys, head bolts, intake bolts. I use it on that as well. Works good. I'm going to tighten those with a ratchet so I know how tight they are. Good. All right, wipe off the excess here. All right, next I'm going to install will be the oil filter adapter. This guy here, I'm going to put Loctite on the threads because I don't want it coming out when we go to change the oil. And we're going to tighten that down with a 24 millimeter socket. Where's the ratchet? And I've seen people switch. They take the oil filter adapter out of their truck oil pan and they put it in these, but there is a difference in the filters from what I've read as far as where the oil bypass is. So I don't switch out. I use this that came with the pan, and then the oil filter that you're going to use is going to be a PF48 or equivalent, and that will fit these threads because these threads are not the same as the PF46 that goes on the truck. All right, windage tray. Going to modify this truck windage tray because it's not going to work with this pan. If you remember when we did the mock-ups, if we set this in here, it does not sit below the pan rail in the front. It's got to get cut. So I'm going to cut the front section of this off, just past this dimple mark and past the mounting bolts here. I'm going to cut this off and then we'll see what it looks like. All right, windage tray is cut down. Make sure you remember to cut the front of the windage tray off. It is marked rear, so don't cut the back. And then it will lay in here below the rail. Now that's the first cut. I'm not saying that we're done yet. I have to check the pickup tube because one of these pans I installed, I had a problem with the pickup tube hitting and I had to make more mods. So we're going to start off with the windage tray cut like that, and we'll see how that pickup tube fits next. All right, so we're going to put this back on. We're going to start with the camera view at the top like that, and then I may move you down lower if we run into any issues because I got to see how the pickup tube clears everything, because I don't know why, but one of these 3022s I had a problem with. Never with the -1. Maybe it was a -3. I can't remember now. It wasn't a -1. I know that. So, all right. So pickup tube. I have a new oil ring that came with the pickup tube. It's the thicker green one. Even though this is aftermarket. So normally if you had a GM pickup tube and it did not have an indentation, you would use a thinner O-ring, but this is aftermarket, and this is the O-ring they supplied, which is the thicker green one. So that's what's going to get used. So let me I'm going to put a little bit of oil on that. So that'll slide in all right. Move that up. And let's see how this lines up. Now, the other thing is, as opposed to GM, you're going to get to use both bolts to bolt the pickup down. So that's an improvement. Let's see. Go in there. The fit is much tighter than the one I took out. There you go, right in there. Nice. Okay. That actually fit really good and felt better than the GM one I took out. All right. Now the pan also comes with 2 new bolts to hold down the pickup tube. Socket head cap screws. And I'm going to go get an Allen key for that. They look like 4 mil. Let me see. And then I'll show you a trick. Oh, they're 5. Are they 5? They're 5 mil. All right, let me show you a trick for holding these cap screws in place on your tool so you don't lose it. So socket head cap screw and an Allen key, you know, if you try to hold it like this, it's going to want to fall off of the tool. Well, take one of your old gloves, tear a little piece of your old glove off and put it over your Allen key like that, and then stick the cap screw on. Doesn't fall off. All right, I'm not gonna go crazy tightening these. I'm just gonna kind of snug them down by feel. I'm sure the torque spec is available, but I'm going by feel. All right, those are snugged down. Remember, the oil pump's made of aluminum, so you're not going to crank the snot out of it. Get the torque spec if you're not comfortable just tightening it up. This looks good. One of these, again, I can't remember which pan. I had a problem where the pickup tube was hitting the windage tray and I had to notch it. But this looks fine. I don't see any problem there. There's a little bit of clearance. It's moving. So, get my original nuts for the windage tray. And we will put this back together. And one thing to mention I got to do before we lay the gasket, I got to put a little RTV at the corners in the back where the rear cover meets the block. Right on each section there, we'll put a little RTV in the back corners, and then the gasket can go on there. All right, I'm just going to put a little RTV on each corner there, right at that joint. And we'll have to do that at the front too, but not until we put the front timing cover on. And that will make sure don't have a leak there. All right, we'll get our brand new gasket here. It came with the oil pan. Only goes on one way, so you can't mess that up. Set that. On there. This one's a little bit bent. Probably a little rough handling. All right, I just wiped this down with brake clean, so this is good to go. that over the pickup. Make sure it sits down good. No issues. All right, I think we gotta line that up a little better. Let's see here. Something doesn't feel right. I feel like the oil pan needs to come forward and the pickup tube maybe holding it back. Not the pickup tube, definitely the windows tray. I had to cut the back two mounting bolt mounting bolts where the holes are for the rear mounting bolts. I had to cut that section off. So that is something I have never had to do with any eBay oil pan, but I had to do it. So let's try again for the 100th time and see if it's right now. That RTV is certainly cured by now. What a fiasco. I hope it fits now because I removed what I think is the problem. And the way to know is if the front bolts line up. If I can get the front of the pan, if the front of the pan lines up with the bolt holes in the block correctly, then it's good. Let's see. Is it straight? I think it is. I think we are finally there. Now Let's see if the other side is the same way. Get the gasket lined up. You can tell things are seem better already because I have some wiggle in the pan, which I did not have before. It seemed like it was wedged. And some of the bolts were going in straight and nice and easy, and others were not because the pan was being bound up. This looks good so far here. Much better than before. Oh, there's no hole there. Okay. Good. This gasket is a little off. Okay. Now the two long ones in the back. If they're not lined up, it isn't going to work. Good. 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 I think we're there. Here's a look at the back. Here's a look at the back of the windage tray. You can see where I basically cut it back. I left just a little bit of the area where the nuts go, just so I have something to hold it down. I don't think it'd be really a big deal if you left those off completely, but I did it like that, and that's enough room for clearance. The problem is with the eBay pan, this certain one here, it's got this lip here in the back, and the factory pan is different, but it's not much, but it sticks out just enough that it won't clear the windage tray with it unmodified. I've never had to do that before, said on these eBay pans, so who knows? You'll just have to keep an eye out for that problem. All right, all buttoned up. Everything's tight. It's just for my own documentation, so I don't forget that I did tighten everything. All right, put the pan back on. Okay. And the back two, I do not have the torque spec off the top of my head. So they're going to be just snug. All right. Finally, oil pan is on. All right, last part of the oil pan install. I put the drain plug in, and now I'll make a total mess. We'll put some oil on the gasket surface. PF48 oil filter. Get that on there. Holy smokes. So now that's something you got to keep in mind for, I guess, some of these eBay oil pans, because I've never had to cut the back of the windage tray, just the front. So that's just something to deal with. And I understand I'm putting the oil filter on now. I can't get a grip on this like this, but I think that's tight enough. I'm not worried about not putting oil in the filter, because since everything's coming apart and well, not everything, but a lot of stuff's coming apart and we're taking the cam out and everything, I'm going to pre-oil this before we start it. So that'll be another video. I've already done a video on it, but we'll go over it at that time too. All right, so that's that. A little bit of a surprise there with having to trim the back of the windage tray, but you know, you got to test fit these things. So maybe you don't want to put the RTV on the block before you install it. I didn't expect to have that problem. I did not have that problem before, but stuff happens. What can you say? Anyway, next video we'll get into the camshaft install and finish that up. So that's it for today. I got stuff to do. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for following along. And thank you for subscribing. See you on the next one. Later.